Tony,
Yes, man.
my word, I've been looking forward to this one. I've been ready to crack a beer up and
Yeah, me too. It's only
enjoy,
11 in the
enjoy.
morning.
It's been a lot of hours. How are you? It's 11 o'clock for you, isn't it, right now?
It's a little early, but that's okay.
Yeah. What beer you
Yeah,
got?
I do have my favorite beer in the world here,
What is that?
called Blind Pig.
Blind Pig.
Russian
What is
River Brewing Company, brewed about 45 minutes north of here. My
that?
all-time favorite beer.
Is it a proper beer or is it a
An IPA.
fancy, trendy beer?
Got my special bottle opener too.
I'm on John Smith's, Yorkshire's finest.
Oh yeah.
I,
Cheers.
Hey, cheers. Wait a minute, actually. Cheers.
Ah,
Ooh, I can start relaxing now. How have you been then? You been good?
yeah. I mean, it's obviously nutty times for many reasons out here, everywhere. Um, but um, luckily, no one that we know or none of our friends or family have become infected
Mm-hmm.
with the virus, and
Mm-hmm.
so feel good about that, of course.
I'm the
But it,
same. I feel
yeah,
very
good.
lucky in the same way. Yeah, very lucky.
And generally speaking, most people around here, at least, are following the proper protocols.
Mm.
And you know, it is kind of strange. You're out for a walk or a trail run or something like that, and when you see someone without a mask on coming close to you, you're like, wait, like give
Yeah,
me some space. But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. It's how is do you have I mean, Tony, even I don't know this question. Do you have kids? Have you got people that you need to look after outside of you and your missus, or?
no, we just have a 13-year-old golden retriever. My parents live about an hour away. But no, it's more about you know, I mean, one of the reasons that I think it's so important to wear a mask when you're outside, regardless of what the government may say or your local government may say, is that it's about the other people. You don't know that you're not going to know if you're infected or not. You could be asymptomatic, and it's just about respecting other people and their space and their health. So yeah, but it certainly is just crazy. I mean, I think the only way things will really get back to normal, or whatever that may be in the future, is when there's a vaccine that's actually proven to work and it's widely available. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
We're going to live with this for a long time, aren't we?
yeah,
Basically, we need a vaccine, and then it's just going to be another version of the flu, almost.
yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
sorry, Tony, I'm not being rude. I'm just admitting people. As people try to get into our conversation, I get a little pop up, and I have to allow them in, if that's okay, mate. So if I look a little bit distracted at the start, that's fine. So tell us, Tellason.
Well, it's been 11 years now, amazingly. You
Yeah.
know,
How did that even come about? Because to me, you seem like such a laid back, cool motherfucker. I can swear now because I'm in pub.
of course.
I can do that.
Uh,
I've been well behaved all day. How did you and Pete? What's the
well,
story? How did you get it?
Oddly enough, Pete and I are 15 days apart in age.
Okay.
We went to the same college at the same time, but didn't know each other there. He grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't meet until after college in Northern California. And we became friends back in probably 1990, and both worked in this industry. In fact, worked together at a company for 4 or 5 years. But around 11, 12 years ago, we started talking about how let's start our own thing. It wasn't a good time, obviously, if you remember what was going on then financially in the world. But, I had experience in denim. I was a partner in a blue jeans company in San Francisco in the 90s, from 93 to 2001.
Well, that experience designing then, or
Everything,
selling, or the whole thing.
mining, production, everything, just like what we do now,
Yeah, yeah.
But the guy that I became a partner with in that was a legend in the world of American denim, in my opinion. He had a brand in the 70s called Sticky Fingers, and it went crazy. He was basically one of the first makers of fashion hippie jeans, for lack of a better word, in the 70s. And he made it all in San Francisco. He was doing bell bottoms for men, orange thread, stuff like this. And back then, most of the denim available was kind of like what we do, which is like standard 5-pocket stuff. And at that time, people were looking for other things. So he started this brand, Sticky Fingers, sold it, started another brand. And then I met him because my first job after college was with Converse as a sales rep, and it was very easy money. I mean, selling Chuck Taylors is quite an easy thing to do. And so I had enough time and money to open a boutique. And some woman came in one day, I remember, right after we opened, and asked if I carried this local brand of jeans called Claudio Agnelli, which I'd never even heard of. I said, no, but I'd like to. And this is pre-internet, so I had to find the phone number somehow. And we met, and about 6 months later, he wanted to start this other brand called Sutter's and asked me if I wanted to come work with him. And I did. And that's how I learned and got into denim. I mean, if that one woman didn't walk into the store and ask me that question, I might not be sitting here right now. Probably not, actually. And that's how things kind of play out usually. So he just knew a ton about fabric. He had a great relationship with Cone Mills, great relationship with the factory in San Francisco, which we still use today. So I learned a ton from him in an 8-year period. And anyway, so Pete and I, when the time came, we decided we want to start our own brand. Denim was an easy choice because I had experience and connections, and he had a love for the product. So, you know, for the first 2 years, we worked out of my garage, folding jeans on top of my washing machine, and both had other jobs because we didn't want to take anything that would come into the company out of it. So we wanted to make sure we could pay our suppliers so that as we grew, they wouldn't be nervous to grow with us. And in this business, there's just so many shady people, you know, that if you're the one customer of a company who actually pays them on time, then they'll work with you, you know, and that definitely played out that way. And so then we went from my garage after 2 years to a storage facility, roll-up door storage facility. We still can afford a real office. We had to bring our own lighting in, but we had too much stuff from my garage. Then we got a small office, and now we moved into this other place we're in now for like 6-7 years, and it's a proper studio and, you know, shipping and everything. You know, but for the first 2 years, we had one fit, one fabric.
What were you fit?
The fit was the John Graham Mellor Slim Straight.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because, and even with that, you know, and all my experience prior to this, we spent 3 months perfecting one fit, every little detail. Pete was the fit model. We'd be standing there with the woman at the factory sewing the sample. He'd put it on. I'd make these micro adjustments, go back to the pattern maker, come back a week later with a fresh pattern, start over again. And finally, when we landed on this one that we thought was exactly what we wanted, then we started hitting up some stores. And we targeted 2 in Seattle, 1 in Portland, 2 in San Francisco. And of those 5 stores, only 2 were still in business, but they all gave us orders on the spot, you know, for a total of about 100 pieces. We were obviously very pleased.
Yeah, very.
So we made, I think, 240 pair. And by the time they were ready, we had called other stores and said, hey, these guys all bought it. And they were well-respected stores. And so other people wanted to get on board too. And by the time the production was done, they were all sold. So we did another one, you know, and then finally we could move on to a second fit, a third fit. There's many stories behind how that all played out, but now we have 7 for men. We still only do men's denim.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just been very methodical. There's zero ego involved. And so, for instance, several of our fits came along based on commentary from retailers and customers. You know, like, for instance, the John Graham Mellor Slim Straight, which is still a really, really good seller for us and works for a lot of guys. We did a collaboration on that jean, small pair, small quantity with Tenu Denim, way back in the day, probably 8 years ago. And I saw Menno and Renee in New York about a month later after they had first got them. And I looked at them, they're wearing them, but they look different than the ones I was wearing, for example. And I said, what? They go, oh, all of our customers, including ourselves, tapered them below the knee. Because in Europe, people want more of a, back then at least, wanted more of a tapered fit. And I thought, there's a Ladbroke Grove fit then. You know, like, why would I not take that advice and listen to that? You know?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then now the Ladbroke Grove slim tapers are bestseller worldwide. And when we would travel, which we used to do quite a bit, we would visit retailers. You know, we'd ask them, when people try on the lab rope and they don't buy it, what do they say? Because it's such a good seller and good fit. And they said, oh, they liked it, but they just wish it was more of a mid-rise. And after hearing that from people we respected quite a bit and agreeing, like, that's not a bad idea. Okay, here comes the Elgin.
Yes, I knew that was. Yeah.
That's really selling, you know. And then
Yeah.
and now the Sheffield that I'm wearing,
Yeah.
you know, we had the Ankara straight leg for years and years, and that's always surprisingly a big seller on our website. And I think versus retail, and I think that's because online consumers, especially, or just guys in general, can wrap their head around what a straight leg means.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about slim tapered, slim straight. Maybe they can't visualize that. But then we also had a lot of guys that liked the upper block on that, but wanted more of a taper. So that was the Sheffield. You know, it's not, I mean, we just had this big belief in that, you know, there's no need to try and reinvent the wheel. You know, I mean, it's just listening to people that you respect. And if you hear this proper commentary from the right people enough, then act upon it, because they're not just saying it for their own health. You know, they believe in it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been our mode. I mean, you know, we have a huge, probably 80% of our business or more even is in core product that we just make year round. You know, we have those 7 fits for men. 6 of those are available in all 3 weights of our denim plus black, and 4 of them. And then, you know, our just standard sort of type 3 jean jacket and coverall jacket is year round available in 2 weights of denim and black. And it's always nice to sprinkle in new things and add on things here, but in reality, what really ends up selling and what guys end up wearing the most is just kind of core stuff, you know. And one of the things I think we've been able to be successful at and grow over the years is that if you bought a pair of 14.75 ounce Sheffields 2 years ago and you wore them, repaired them, wore them, and finally you're ready for a new pair, we have them. You know, exact same thing. And I know that's what I like. I get so bummed out. Let's say I find a great trail running shoe that I like from some company, wear them, finally need a new pair, and they stop making it. You know, like, why, you know, why not make something else different, but keep on making what is good, you know? And, you know, I think if there was an app, and maybe it exists, I'm not that into that stuff, but I mean, if there was an app where a guy could take a picture of himself in the mirror of what he's wearing, and at the end of the year, that app could tell him, you wore that shirt 25 times, those jeans 60 times, I think we would all find that what we end up wearing is pretty much the same thing all the time. You know?
I agree with that. I think that when you assign yourself to a style, when you find a comfort zone, especially when you get a bit older, maybe when you're a teenager, you'll do whatever, you know, cool kids are doing, whatever. Yeah. But, you know, anything from 25 plus, you know,
it's nice to have you
settled, don't you? You settle.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people are surprised to find out that in our 11 years of business, the pair I'm wearing is only my 6th ever pair. Yeah. And I only have a pair going right now, this pair, but also one other pair, because we did this special with the Elgin with this brown weft fabric from Kaihara that's kind of one of the fabrics that got me into raw denim a long time ago. It's a beautiful fabric, but if that fabric didn't present itself to us and we didn't make that jean, then I would still just have this one pair, you know. It's you have too many pair and it's hard to get them to break in properly if you rotate them too much, you know.
So what was the transition between making jeans and having a core? Sorry, I'm just going to admit some other people into the conversation, if that's okay, Tony. Admit all. Right, admit somebody else. Sorry, Tony. I'm just allowing people in to watch us speaking. So what was the transition between making jeans to making your jackets, then going into your fatigue pant and so on and so forth? You know,
I mean, a lot of it just comes down to listening to customers. I mean, the thing is, as a brand starts having success in a retail location, for example, a particular store, and their customers keep on coming and asking, hey, do you have anything more from this company? You know, they want to grow with you horizontally, have more stuff of yours there. And what we've learned over the years, there's been many things that we have made that Pete and I love from back in the day that really aren't what people are looking for us. They don't sell that well. For instance, like we made this beautiful 60/40 Japanese nylon cotton coach's jacket that we used to wear back in the day. Did not sell. Too
No.
expensive. Made in, Japanese fabric, made in San Francisco. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Just too
I get
expensive.
it.
It turns out people weren't looking for that from us. So the lesson to be learned is that basically anything we make now and going forward, and at least just the lesson from past lack of success with certain things that aren't in this category, which is denim based or denim related and or military inspired. And it turns out that that's fine because there's plenty of other things out there. We're definitely not streetwear, I mean, it's just not what we're good at or what people look at us for. But it does make sense that we have a coverall jacket. It does make sense, or a short coat. It does make sense that we have various shirts that complement the denim. But even with that, I mean, like I was talking about core business earlier, like we have 4 shirt styles, bodies or fits or whatever, and that's enough. So what is it about after that? It's about maintaining core business in, like, for instance, the topper shirt and denim, which is our first ever shirt. We've been making this forever, still sells great. Yeah. But if I find another fabric in my travels or meeting with fabric suppliers, my first thing in my mind I think of is what one of those 4 shirts would that fabric look best in? Okay, let's make it. And then if it sells really well, great. Maybe I can get the fabric again and repeat it. If not, it was a one-hit wonder, but it was still a good thing to have. But like I was saying, since our business is so core oriented and guys like to come back, I mean, if I look on our history of our web sales, there's guys that have more of our product that are web customers of ours than me and Pete have ever had combined in total. Some guys just have a lot of stuff. Maybe they have multiple residences and they just want to keep shit at each place. I don't know, but it's pretty remarkable to me how much. But some guys just come back and buy the same jean, the same fabric, the same size every time, and we want to be able to offer them that.
Well, you definitely do, and it's really funny because I feel like you've created a brand. You and Pete created a brand, but you've kind of accidentally created a brand. You never sat back and thought to yourselves, "We want to have a brand, and this is what we're going to do to make that brand." Right. You almost didn't even look past your first line.
Right.
And then when you got to that, you almost didn't look past the next line. And
no, it's true.
And then so on and so forth,
You're right. And maybe it's because we don't have the skill to be that way, or in reality, I think it's more about that's just how we are. I mean, we like durable products. We're not afraid to spend money on things if they're truly durable and useful. And I think what we all find out in general is that the things that we value the most aren't the things that were the most expensive or whatever. They're the things we use the most. Those are the things that truly have value. And one of the, I mean, I know you had Red Wing earlier, and one of the things that analogy I always use is, you can buy a pair of Red Wing Heritage, let's say to make the math easy, $250 a pair. By the time they finally break in and feel personal and great, the sole wears out. You don't get rid of them, you resole them. And you keep on doing that. And over time, over a 10-year period, you spent $400, but you've got the best boot you've ever had. And you didn't reward companies for making garbage that look like a Red Wing for a third of the price every year. You end up spending less money over time.
It's almost like you've got a relationship.
Yes.
I was speaking to my missus earlier when Red Wing were doing their thing and she were watching. She'll not come on camera, but she's outside at camera listening. And I were on about the 875. And I said, that is my favourite boot. The 875 is my favourite boot, but I wear the 8131. That was the first boot I bought, and I've worn it for 4 years. I've had it resold once.
Yeah.
And she said, well, why don't you buy an 875? And I said, fucking hell. I'll be 42 years old before an 875 fits me like my 8131s. Yeah. Even though I want an 875, it's never going to happen.
No, you're right. And that's the thing. I mean, I think, again, guys in general don't like shopping that much, right?
Yeah.
And they want things they can rely on. And once you find that, you stick with it. And
Yeah.
and also, we've never really played the fashion calendar game. I mean, the only reason we come up with new things, and some hit, some miss, is when we feel the pressure of, oh, we're going to be going to Berlin for a trade fair, or whatever. We better have something new to show people. And some of the things that we design and make samples of end up getting made because there was great feedback and pre-orders. But a lot of things that we show at trade fairs, if we really believe in it, and some of our partners around the world believe in it when they see the sample, we just start making it, you know? And so we could be at a trade fair in January, and most companies are showing stuff for fall to be delivered 6-7 months later. And in our case, and most of the items that they see, if we believe in it and get good feedback beforehand, we've already started. It'll be ready in 2 or 3 months. And I don't know that, because the world's a big place, and you have different seasons. San Francisco in the summer, you need to wear jeans. LA, it's too hot, whatever. But I mean, denim sells year round. It has its peaks and valleys, but it sells year round because of style and weather in different places. And I think another mistake that a lot of companies make, big and small, is that they build a product, it sells really well, and then they move on. But if it's a good product, that it's not possible that everyone in the world who thought that was a good product happened to buy that first run. It means there's thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands or millions of more people out there who may want it, and they just need to see it. So why toss away something that actually sold really well just because it's time to move on to the next season or whatever, So
I'm going to ask you a question which might relate to a few people that's watching now, that might be setting up a company like yourself, Tony, if that's all right. It's all good, me and you talking about, what's good and how you've learned and stuff like that. But at the start, when you first started it, there must have been many hardships. It must have been really difficult. It can't have just started and earned money. And
I think, and I've seen it happen many times in the time we've been around, because many people love denim, let's say, and they love it because it served them well personally by wearing it properly, right? But they've never worked for a company that made it. They've never been an intern. They've never even worked in retail. And then they try to start a brand. And I've always been really empathetic to those guys when I meet them, around, because I almost want to tell them, don't do it. Don't do it until you have some experience. Learn the trade as much as you can, either at a big or small company as a paid employee or an intern or something, even work in a store, just so you can see the reality of things before you sink all your money and effort and time into trying to start a brand, because you only have one chance. That's why I said earlier, even though I had all that experience in those prior 8 years of being in a denim brand before Tellason, we still spent 3 months making one piece, one sample, because the world did not and still does not need another brand in denim or in any category, really. There's always room for better in every category, right? And part of that comes to product, service, provenance, etc. But if we would have gone out there with our first prototype after the first, sample, we wouldn't have been successful because it wasn't right. So the smartest thing we did was wait till it was right, then show it to people, and then grow from there. So I'm not saying it was rosy from the beginning, but it wasn't as difficult as it was for some group of people or a couple of guys or whatever that didn't have experience.
And that may be because you'd had experience before.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we went into it blindly. We had connections with cone mills, we had connections with a pattern maker, we had connections with a factory, suppliers of trims and things like this. They were long-standing relationships, and so when I called the factory and said, "Hey, I'm getting back into denim," I'm like, "Great, we'd love to work with you again." I had a friend who, at the time of the other company, was working for a big label making company. But then during that interim of the time I was out of Denim for 8 years or whatever, he had started his own company doing that. And so of course we're going to work together to get all of our labels and hang tags and stuff from his company. And that was the same thing with Cone Mills, as well. When we first started, I called the guy who was a friend from back in the day, and I kept in touch with him even when I was out of Denim. Hey, Rick, I'm getting back into Denim. Is Cone White Oak still in business? He's like, yeah. I go, all right, I'll come by, and we picked out the fabric, and we were fortunate to be able to buy directly from them as opposed to going through a third party, because we were able to get a consistent source of the same fabric for 2 years on a small quantity. And then, of course, as we grew and started developing the proprietary fabrics with them, it was natural. And as I was saying earlier, how we didn't take any money out of the business and we had other jobs, that's also something that came from experience, knowing that we would only become valuable to our suppliers, not because of our size, but because we would pay them and we were easy to work with.
Yeah.
And I remember when we started with Cone buying that first, 400 yards or whatever, they gave us net 60 terms, not pay in advance, not pay by credit card. Why? Because the credit manager at that time for Cone was the same guy I worked with back in the day. And we always paid our bills back in the day with the other brand. And as we grew and went from 400 yards to 4,000 to 10,000 or whatever, they never asked for a credit reference. We kept our terms. Everything was fine because we paid them on time. And in this business, there's just so many shysters, like I said earlier.
That's really important. I think, that's very important.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you ask, it's pretty simple actually, right? You ask a company to make something for you at this price, in these terms, in this date, and they deliver it, pay them. Done. But in this business, there are so many people that don't play that way. And so if you do, you automatically have a leg up, and you're actually refreshing to work with because you never appear on that list of people that owe me money.
Yeah. That's brilliant. What I am going to ask you about, Tony, if you don't mind, this is probably a bit more of a personal question. I bought the coverall. The coverall were my first ever raw denim piece that I ever paid full price. I worked in vintage before, so I'd had selvage denim via a vintage wholesaler. The first time I ever shelled out on a jacket was the coverall from Rudy at Son of a Stag. And it's still here now. Well, you can't tell, but it's hung up.
Oh, there it is.
Just above my shoulder here. It's still hung up. I've put on a couple of stone. You don't. Anyway, but that to me now I'm into it, and I understand the aesthetics of clothing and the functionality of clothing. That is a brilliant piece, right? So where does the design aspect come from when it comes to Tellason?
Well, in that particular piece, back in the day, again, we were probably 2 years old. There was a great shop in Brooklyn called Smith and Butler. Not there anymore. It's been closed for probably 5+ years.
Mm-hmm.
But the husband and wife at the time that ran that were really talented, creative people. This guy named Jay Alimo was the husband in that relationship, and just a super talented guy, creative in many ways. And we were going to do a collaboration with them on a product that was going to be exclusive to them, at least for the first year or so that it came out. And so he put together the jacket. And over the years, after the collaboration ended, we just kept on running it. We made some alterations to it with fit a little bit and some details on the collar. But in reality, it came from that.
Oh, excuse me.
And again, that came from no ego and just listening to a really talented guy. Like why would if he's willing to work with us and we're partnering up on this product, why not listen to him? I mean, that's the thing. It's if there's people you respect.
Yeah.
You're allergic to beer?
No, it's hay fever. Sorry, it's very warm.
It's like, again, if people that you respect come up with something with you, why not? So that's, it's kind of like, I remember one time we did a collaboration with our distributor from Italy. It's called Manifattura Ceccarelli. Super talented, former Filson Europe designer and maker, and kind of got pushed aside when Filson was sold and came up with his own brand. And this stuff is amazing. We did a jacket collaboration with him. It was his jacket, but we had, selvage interior pocket, and it was as much as we could offer to make it something that was sort of co-branded in a way. And I remember someone early in, it must have been on Twitter, I think it was before Instagram, but said, well, that's a nice coat, but you should probably give props to Filson and it was Burton for the idea. I'm like, hey, yeah, sure. And also thank you to Loeb Strauss for the inspiration of our 5-pocket jean. In other words, no one is reinventing anything. It's all been done. Everything's been done before. Of course, there's things you can do with fabric and quality of sewing and fit and all this, but it's not like someone's going to come out with a 3-armed shirt and take the world by storm. It's just like, that's not what it's about in this category, at least. And certainly not what we're about, or a lot of brands like us are about.
Well, it's like they say, no band will ever write a new song, because in 1954, every song, as of that point, had been written.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But, there's room for, like I said earlier, when we started, and if someone was to start a denim brand tomorrow, no one needs it. Right? World always does need brands that are focused on quality. And again, that comes with product, service, and to me, a really important thing is provenance. I mean, I care about where things are made, obviously. And it's about, Pete and I talk a lot about how it's really about converting one guy at a time, explaining not just our story, but the story of why it's important. If you care about your community, then why not support, if it's a retailer, someone locally, or if it's a maker of product in your home or your country and you are passionate about that, then they're not museums, they're businesses. You have to support them.
Yeah.
And, everyone has a choice of where they spend their money, and I could buy a cheaper beer than this, but not as a good one. One is good. So I'm happy to support these guys. They make a great product and they have for years.
May I, I'm going to refer to price a little bit, if you don't mind. Your jeans, USA made jeans, do come in £40 to £50, depending on the store, cheaper than other USA brands. Why do you think that is?
Well, what I brought to the table when we started Tellason was experience in denim from top to bottom. What we brought was experience in international sales. He'd been the sales director for many brands prior to starting Tellason, mainly handling not only domestic but international business. And one of the things we learned was, and this also, I've seen this kind of bite smaller companies or people that don't have this experience in the ass pretty hard when they go international, is that if your product is, and especially in the day of web sales and stuff, because if your product is more than 15 or 20% higher in price in a foreign country than it is in your home country, it won't sell long term. It might sell one season, 1 6-month period. Yeah. But if it's way overpriced, if your jeans are $240 here and they're $375 in equivalent in Europe, they're not going to have success at retail. You might get some online business direct, but it's not going to have success in a store. So what Pete knew from his experience was, what is the target retail in Europe, for example? It's fair. Okay. To make the math easy, let's say 200 in the US. In Europe, 240, 230, 240 is permissible. Work backwards from that. If we work backwards from that, we know what the margins are that retailers in Europe need to have. And then what a distributor needs to make. And then what our cost is, can we sell it to the distributor so that when he adds on his margin and the retailer adds on their margin, that it'll hit that number, that target retail number. So we spent a lot of time and effort doing that. In fact, when we first started working with some of our distributors, we opened up the books. Here's what it costs us. Here's what we're selling it to you for. It could not be more fair. So short term, the strategy would be, let's just try to make a ton of dough, right? But if you want to have long-term success in some of the best stores in the world, then you have to be fairly priced, And so we're always looking at that. I mean, if we haven't raised our U.S. retail in a few years, But once we do, then maybe we would have a corresponding increase in Europe or the UK or wherever else in the world. But at the moment, it's about approachability and fairness for everyone, including the retailer. You know,
That's really interesting. It's really interesting that you think about it like that. You know, for me that sold your product, it was quite easy to sell your product for me, because it were either somebody comes into the shop, they don't really know what they want, they just know that they want a raw denim jean, and basically they're either going to buy an Edwin jean or a Tellason jean. It's that simple. If somebody comes in that's really enthusiastic and really up for the game, they would buy another American brand, but it would always be £50 or £60 more expensive. And well, basically, they might like the look of the jean. That's up to them. That's up to the customer. But in terms of quality and what you're offering, not actually any better. And I was always a little bit intrigued about how you managed to hold that price point and also provide quality and service at the same time.
well,
And I think
people out there may be surprised to know that even today, Tellason is still just me and Pete. I mean, we have accountants, etc. But as far as on a daily basis, coming into our studio and shipping orders, designing stuff, working with the factory, talking to this, doing that, it's just me and Pete. And lately, during this pandemic, it's been Pete on Monday, me on Tuesday, Pete on Wednesday, me on Thursday, etc. So we're not even there together anymore. Fortunately, a lot of things we do, we can work from home, you know.
Of course.
But you know, I mean, and so somehow, you know, even though where we live and where we operate and where we make our product couldn't be more expensive in the U.S., right? I mean, it's incredible how expensive everything is around here, including studio space, including manufacturing here, living here. But part of the reason that we've been able to survive so long selling, I mean, let's be honest, everyone that's probably watching us now that's in this business, or everyone that does what we do, we're all selling shit people do not need. I mean, you know, everyone, I mean, so what gives you the ability to exist? That's service. It's one guy at a time. It's quality of product. It's working with limited suppliers. I mean, that's like, to me, it's all about relationships. And part of that comes from service and quality of product and consistency. I mean, yes, we have 7 fits for men. All the indigo versions of those are all sewn with the exact same thread color, the exact same sewing methods. And that was by design, you know, to make it easier for the factory and easier for us, frankly. I mean, you know, I could get on the phone right now. Normally you'd send the factory a production, you know, order if you want to make something new, but I could literally call our factory owner right now and say, I want 200 pair of this fit and this size scale and this fabric. And okay, they've done so many that it's not, well, change the pocket on this one, do a little stitch to, no, you know, it's just not what we're into, you know. And it kind of gets back to that mentality of things that you value the most are the things that you use the most and that you trust and that are consistent. So for example, we'll probably talk about white oak, I would imagine, at some point.
I'll touch on that in a minute, yeah.
Tony, I got a question. Sorry. Hey, Neil from Cologne here. How important is, hello. How important is classic marketing still for you? Or is this at least important?
Marketing?
Yeah. Do you any kind of classic marketing, or is it just Instagram and social media?
Just that. I mean, you know, to me, I've always said from day one, and Pete would agree, that for a brand like ours, it's because it's obviously, given the price and just the rigidity of the fabric, let's say, it isn't for everybody. And so to me, we've always believed that our marketing is really our product and our distribution first, because as I said earlier, when we first started, we targeted those 5 stores. By the time the production was ready on the 100 pair that they bought, plus the other 140 pair we made extra. We sold all the 140 pair by calling other stores saying, oh, we're in this store. And they're like, oh, they're a great store. I'll take a dozen pair, you know? So it really starts to me with product, service, and distribution. If you can say you're in this store, every brand in the world wants to be in this great store in Japan or this great store in the UK or whatever, and you're in there, people know that the product must be good because that store has the option of every brand in the world that wants to be in there, and they pick yours. And how do you maintain that? You treat them properly, you price things as fairly as you can, and you provide really good service and consistency, you know?
Yeah, like you said earlier, price everyone well, make good quality.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, when you know that, I mean, we have specific categories of people I know that love our kind of product and other brands like ours, but we also know that 99.9% of the people in the world that wear blue jeans don't wear jeans like this. You know, they want them to look like these do, but they want to buy them to look like this. They don't want to work in, you know? It's just different. So, you know, to me, it would be a big waste of time, effort, money to try to get your average jeans consumer on a mass level to come to a product like this. It just wouldn't
Perfect.
work.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Hey, Tony, we've got some questions coming in for you, mate, from the people that are watching, if that's okay. Just give me 1 second. Need to sort this out. Right, you're back, Tony. You're back. So, I know this story, so I'm going to let you explain it. Benchmark Craft has asked a question. Where did the names of your jeans come from?
The product names.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's, I mean, I can tell a 2-hour story about it or a quick one. I'll do the quick one. But basically, you know, as I said earlier, Pete and I both grew up in California in the 70s. And when we were about 12 years old, we were pretty tired of all the hippie stuff out there, especially me growing up in a college town in Northern California. And all of a sudden, here comes punk rock, you know? And LA had a scene going at the time, New York, San Francisco, UK, of course. And when that all just ran its course, you know, from 77 to about 85, to me, punk rock was a moment in time and a not necessarily a style of music because there was such a wide variety within it. But the band that really influenced us personally and separately until we met was The Clash, you know? And so a lot of people probably don't care or even know what these names mean, but if you look at all the product names, you have a brand and you have products, you got to name them. Not only for retail reasons, but just internally, you know, hey Pete, what about the Ladbroke Grove? What about the, you know, like we need to have a reference point for something instead of just a number.
Yeah.
Although numbers have a meaning too. Some of the style numbers are related to things. And so, and you know, what's a beautiful thing is it's just so genuine and just so a part of who we are that we've met so many amazing people in this world because of that, who are
100%. Yeah.
super close to the band and band members or other just big fans. I remember had to be about 2 years ago because I haven't been to Japan in a while, but I was just walking through a small neighborhood and I came across this. It looked like it's an English car, wood on the side, and all this, a Woody or whatever, and the license plate was CLA5H. And I looked at the shop, and it was this Japanese guy who had this brand of stuff. But he had to be independently wealthy because there's no way he's selling much. But his store was a museum of Clash stuff, you know. And so then he gave me a bunch of stickers and a CD plays in a Clash cover band in Japan. You know, I sent him some jeans, blah blah blah. I've just met so many amazing people in the UK because of this, and it's just, I think they all see that it's organic and real, and and when you're of a certain age, you know, it just had such a high impact on your life. I mean, I can remember, like, the town I grew up in was about an hour from here, college town, and I remember we had a great record store, and in 1977, I had heard on college radio, which ruled everything back then, this new band, The Clash from London. And I'm like, oh, that's incredible. And I went to the other record store to find it, and they didn't have it because that record, their first album, even though it came out in 77 in the UK, it wasn't released in the US until 78. Got on my bike, went down to the Better record store. They had an import. I spent a lot of money on that import, came home, put it on and listened to it all day.
Change a lot.
For 6 hours,
Change
and so they just meant a lot to us. And I would really love to hear some of Joe Strummer's opinions on what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So when I'm just going to revert it back to a little bit Tellason trivia, if you don't mind. So, for example, Ladbroke Grove. We know it's something to do with Clash, but why? Sheffield, why?
Well,
Grove,
that is an area of London where the Clash hung out.
Yeah.
If you listen to some of their live stuff, Cosmo Vinyl comes on. It dresses the crowd all the way from Ladbroke Grove, W10, right?
Yeah.
Sheffield is important because that on July 4th, 1976, a big day here, but it was also the first day the Clash ever played a gig together, and it was
the Clash.
Yeah.
I had a customer in my shop buy one of your jeans who was at that gig. You won't believe it, Tony. It was amazing. And he came into the shop and he bought a pair. I can't remember what pair he bought. I don't know if it was Sheffield's or Elgin's or Lab. I can't remember what pair he bought. That didn't matter. Anyway, the point where we were talking about the names of the jeans, and he said to me, he said, well, I think, is it all about Clash? I said, well, I told him it was all about Clash. And he said, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense because so-and-so and so-and-so. And then he had a jean called the Sheffield. Obviously, the shop was in Sheffield. And he said, so it won't have been the Sheffield that he bought. He must have bought the Ladbroke Grove or the Elgin. And we ended up talking about the Sheffield. And he said, why the Sheffield? I said, well, the guys from Tellason are really interested in the Clash, a lot of respect for that band. So they kind of name a lot of the products after that band. And he said to me, I tell you what, Ben, he says, I swear, and he was an older bloke. We were in his 70s. Cool motherfucker. We're in his 70s. He says, I tell you what, Ben, I went to a pub called the Mucky Duck, which were actually, the pub were called the Black Swan.
Yeah, Black Swan.
But in Sheffield, they called it Mucky Duck. That was just the nickname for it. It's now called the Boardwalk, and everybody plays there now. But at the time, it was called the Black Swan, but he called it the Mucky Duck. He says, and I went in to watch Sex Pistols play, and I was like, right, yeah. He says, and there were a band supporting them, and they were called Summer Clouds, Magic Clouds, Black Clouds, something like that. He says, I were outside and I were waiting to go and watch Sex Pistols play. And a guy walked out and he saw a big chalkboard that were outside it in Sheffield. And he rubbed out the Magic Clouds or Black Clouds, whatever it were. And he just put in chalk. So it said Sex Pistols supported by, and he just wrote The Clash. And that was Joe Strummer. And he walked back in.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, and he walked back in, and he says, I went into that gig. He says, Ben, I'm not kidding you. There were 18 of us. That were it. He says, there were just 18 of us. It's amazing.
Now, 1,000 people or 10,000 people have said they were there. But...
Yeah, they would do that. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. And he says, Ben, I promise you, it cost me, something like 10 bob foot ticket, old English money. It cost me 10 bob foot ticket. He says, and there were 18 of us here watching them. And Sex Pistol played, headlined, and the Black Clouds, which then became the Clash, supported them. He says, and I said to him, I said, that's an amazing memory. I says, what can you remember? He says, he were on about the singer from Sex Pistols stood at bar. He says, and bar lady were trying to give him a new jumper because his knitwear were ripped. And so bar lady were going, my little lad's got a jumper upstairs. It'll fit you. I'll give you this jumper and stuff like that, you know. And that was
Great.
Crystals and the Clash. And I've always had really, you know, I've always loved. Well, I've just always loved how you name your products.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, like I said, you have to name your products. To us, these are things that are really important to us. And again, I know that there are people out there who have no idea, and that's okay. There are people that do, and they love it. And like I said, it's really opened up a lot of interesting doors for us. And we met some unbelievable people who were so closely associated with the band because of that, you know, and because they can see it's genuine, and it's just, you know, if we were 20 years younger, they wouldn't believe us. But since we were right there at the time, you know,
definitely,
so it was great. It's great.
Well, I think you and Peter are a band. You might do Denim instead of music, but you're definitely a band.
Yeah.
I think we might need to be wrapping it up now. We've got 5 minutes before the next person comes on, but thank you very much for taking your time out.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great.
Thank you. I know it's 11 o'clock in the morning to you,
and this is not a weak beer, so maybe I'll take a nap.
Yeah. It's I've been dying all day for this one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've been on it since nearly 12 o'clock last night, and I nicked a few hours sleep. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I'm ready for a drink now and to relax. But it's gone really well. And last thing, you guys' donation to the auction, the charity, the 501xx.
Yeah.
Just tell us what it is, basically. We don't need to know how you've got it or out like that.
Well, it's
what you're putting up.
It was gifted to us by a former retailer several years ago, and it's a signed version by Bob Haas.
And for anybody that don't know who Bob Haas is, what would you say?
He's the Haas family that basically descendants and owners of Levi until they went public, and also got quite wealthy when they went public, or wealthier, let's say. Yeah. But anyways, I knew it would mean more as a donation to raise money for this very important cause, and also, you know, it's a very unique thing to have. So hopefully it'll generate a lot of bids.
Interest, yeah. You know? I hope so, brother. It's very kind of you. We are turning it all charity wise. We have it as target already. So anything else that we get is a bonus and a positive. I just like to thank you for your generosity. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, man. So we have a couple more minutes left, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So I would like to say thanks to anybody out there who not only supports us, but other brands like ours that try to do things in a proper way, in a sustainable way, and also to the retailers out there, you know, because in this time, it's not easy to have a brick and mortar, obviously, when people can't even come in. Mm-hmm. So do what you can to support the people that matter to you. Maybe even buy things you don't need from them. Kind of goes against what I believe in, but buy things you don't need from them just to help them. And if nothing else, it shows that you are thinking about them, you care. I've bought some things from shops around the world that I don't necessarily need, but I just want them to know that I'm thinking of them and I care about them. And as I said earlier, these things that we all love, whether it's a restaurant, bar, coffee shop, in our neighborhood, retailer, they're not museums, they're businesses. And the only way they survive is with being supported. And in a small way, it helps. So, you know, get online if these shops that you love aren't open yet, or you can't go see them, and just buy something, you know, help them out. Because during this time, you know, we've just now again started on a very small level, shipping a few domestic retailers product, but there was a 2.5 month period where we hadn't shipped anything because they're closed. We've been shipping stuff to our guy in Taiwan that handles China a bit because they've always been shopping online so much. So even the retail stores there are really mostly online shops. But fortunately, during this time for us, our online sales have increased to direct to consumer, you know, mostly here in the US. And a lot of that comes from people, and I've even seen messages from people who said kind of like what I said, you know, I don't really need a new pair of jeans or a jacket, but I want to support you guys, help you keep the lights on during this time. And that's much appreciated, you know? And so, and even something like what you're doing with this, getting all these people around the world. I don't know how many people are seeing this particular thing, but I'm sure that a lot of things that you've put together during this 24-hour period have been really well viewed. And it just shows that people care enough to spend some time, not only to do it, but also to tune in. And I just think, you know, it's a great thing, and I want to thank you a lot for including us, you know.
No. It's absolutely all our pleasure. Thank you very much for taking your time. One thing I am going to say to you is, fuck, you must be missing sport, because I am.
Oh, I've been watching. Yeah, you mean
Bundesliga.
Big Roma fan.
Yeah.
And they said the Italian league is going to start up again on June 20th.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But I've been watching the German league been going on, all right? And I've been watching the last 2 weekends matches, German matches, Bundesliga matches, and it's actually the first one I saw, they did not do this, and it was kind of weird watching. But now they've been piping in crowd noise.
Yes.
Watching, there's no one in the stands, they're piping in the crowd noise. So it kind of seems like you're watching a regular match, you know?
It needs to. Otherwise, it looks like you're watching Sunday league football. Yeah, exactly. A practice match.
Even take it to the level where when the goalkeeper's sort of wasting time, the opposing team's goalkeeper is wasting time. Start booing and whistling and stuff. Well, they're doing their best, you know. But
it's all we've got at the minute, isn't it? And they're on about signing Premier League up again in, I think it's the same date, isn't it? June 20th, same as Italy, I think, something like that. We'll see how we get on with that. But what about your baseball?
Well, that's another thing we missed dearly. I mean, you know, and locally they've been showing. We had some glory years back in 2010, 12, and 14, and so for the San Francisco Giants, they've been replaying a lot of the playoff games and World Series games on TV, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, we all miss going to the ballpark, you know. I mean,
are they going to do that behind closed doors?
They're talking about if they do restart. I don't know if it's been fully determined on what the date may be, but yeah, they'd have to do that. I mean, I just don't think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to want to go sit next to some people they don't know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they could open up certain sections only. I don't know, but you know, it's. I mean, there's a lot of considerations to make before it's just as usual. And that's the thing. Like, you've probably seen what's happening here in the news with all the, you know, that protesting of the racism and all this shit. And I'm worried about, again, totally support the idea of the protest, right? This bullshit, what's happening to people in our country. But all these protests, people getting together to protest, I'm worried now about this proximity problem now. And everyone's going to, you know, because there's been so many cases of where people get together in big crowds, kind of not paying attention to what's happening with the virus. And then a week later, 30 people that were at this event got sick or got infected, you know? So it's pretty crazy.
It's a funny time, really funny time, Tony. But really great to speak to you. Thank you very much for taking your time for us and those guys. I'm just going to see. I'm going to put it on a different view, Tony, so I just can't see you, my mate, if that's all right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching.
Peace.
Yeah, defo. Them.
Cheers.
And right, Tony, what time is it? 8 o'clock. I've got to go. I've got another job in.
Close my computer right now.
Yeah.
Arrivederci.
Thank you very much for your time, Tony.
Take care. Talk to you. Ciao.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.